Hello everybody, Justin from Playing Board Games here, and today I have an Arkham Horror list video for your entertainment. These are 5 Guardian cards that you should give a second chance to. Whether it's because the cards are better than you think, or the cards are fun to build around, or the cards are just in places that are otherwise contested and can do surprising things if you take the time with them. This is a list that was designed by myself and also some of the people in our Discord. I put out an open roll call being like, hey, are there any cards you think that in the Guardian class that people don't play enough? And that's kind of where this lives. And I took some of those and I took some of my own, and we're going to talk about them one by one, and it's going to be a really fun time. Our first card here is Martyrs Vrace. This is a 2-cost, 3 experience asset from the Scarlet Keys. It takes up the accessory slot and it soaks for 2 and 2. It's an item, charm, and armor. And its text box is, you get +1 skill value while resolving revelation abilities on encounter cards. As a reaction, after another investigator location draws a non-peril encounter card, and before resolving that card's effects, exhaust Martyrs Vrace. You are considered to have drawn that encounter card instead. So this card, otherwise known as Salami Arm, actually plays surprisingly well and does a better job of functioning than it does when you're just reading the card. Because when you think of what this card does and like what slot it contests with in the Guardian class, you see stuff like most commonly Hallowed Mirror in the accessory slot. Some people, they do Upgraded Holy Rosary if their decks are planning on going about that. Some people are also doing Riot Whistle, and then also now the new Cleaning Kit in Hemlock Vale. These are all cards that I think are very good and contest with the accessory slot. However, I actually do believe that Martyrs Vrace is a quite strong card, and it actually should overrule some of these cards that people are already playing. A good example of this is Hallowed Mirror level 0. I think Hallowed Mirror level 0 is an easy card to include if you want to be doing damage and horror healing. However, is it the best option? I think for most cases the answer is probably no. And if you can get the upgraded Hallowed Mirror, you can. However, at the same time, it still requires you to find your soothing melodies after playing them. You do get 1 into your hand, which is doable, but not as, consistent as something like Martyrs Vrace. What Martyrs Vrace does is it provides you with 2/2 healing, so it basically is providing you 1 soothing melody. This is all assuming that you're not healing your allies, which is where I think some Hallowed Mirror goes up in value if that's your game plan. But what this card does is it provides you basically 1 soothing melody and healing. But what it also does is it is working as a way to mitigate damage and horror that you would take from the Mythos phase. That first line, you get +1 skill value while resolving revelation abilities on encounter cards, is just a nice passive way to ensure that you'll be able to pass a good chunk of tests in the Mythos phase. A lot of Guardians will hover around 2 or 3 in their defensive stats. This will put you up to 3 or 4, and if it puts you up to 4 or even 5 in some cases, that's a very nice ability for this to have. It basically means that you're getting +1 to all of your run and remains checks for the remainder of the game once this is in play. Very nice passive ability on that. However, where this card I think really goes a step above is its second ability, which is just a repeatable sort of let me handle this light. Let me handle this is a level 0 Guardian event that if you play it, you get to take a card from another player just like what this does, but you get +2 as opposed to only +1, which this card gives you. This is actually just like a really nice way of playing the Guardian support, quote unquote, without actually being the Guardian support. I played this most recently in a limited collection with Sister Mary, and it was very fun with Martyrs Vrace to stay on someone's location, like say for example, someone who was weaker or did not want to see enemies, and this allows you to grab that card from it, because this card also allows you to snatch up enemies that player might draw, which is really nice for Martyrs Vrace, because if you just stay with your Seeker, you can now like grab an enemy that that player would draw during the Mythos phase, and it now takes it with you. So like, once again, if you're looking at playing Riot Whistle, which I think is a fine card in a majority of decks, and especially with majority of players, you can instead look at playing Martyrs Vrace instead of the upgrade and just get more passive value out of it, because it's essentially giving you an engage action. This especially is true if you're playing with Safeguard in your deck as well. So I think what you should do is you should look at your accessory slot while you're building your deck and be like, do I have a plan for this that goes beyond thing? Like, if I'm just playing Hallowed Mirror, maybe I want to look at Martyrs Vrace in my upgrades instead, because it gives, I think, more value over the course of the game than Hallowed Mirror is going to, unless, again, you're taking advantage of healing your allies with it. All right, next one we got here is Flesh Ward. So this is another one that I feel like it plays a lot better than it reads. And you're going to kind of see some similar stuff with what I said with Martyrs Vrace here. But Flesh Ward is a 3-cost, level 0 Guardian asset that takes up the spell slot. It soaks for 1 and 1, which is nice, and it uses 4 charges. As a reaction, when you are dealt damage and or horror from an enemy attack, exhaust Flesh Ward and spend 1 charge. Cancel 1 damage or horror just dealt from that attack. I will preface all my discussion here about Flesh Ward with this statement that yes, it is an expensive card. 3 resources is a lot in a class that is very money hungry. I'm not gonna pretend that it isn't. However, I do think that Flesh Ward, what it allows you to do is it changes the way in which you play the game. Generally, this is played in Daniela Reyes because one, she's in the art, and 2, it works very well for her playstyle. However, I think that this is something that you can consider in a good variety of other Guardians as well, and I think it's underutilized in a lot of these decks. Tommy Muldoon, I think, is one of them that would go great. I think Will Yorick could also play this card quite well. But the reason why I think this card is actually better than it reads, and I've been impressed with it every time that I've played it, it's because it's because it allows you to change your thought process when it comes to approaching how you deal with enemies when the threat arises with an enemy. So this is something that I can relate back to when I played 2 survival knives in one scenario. I was just like, is it bad to play 2 survival knife level 2s? Because I then changed how I targeted enemies into, instead of the player phase, I'm now dealing with them in the enemy phase, and that opened up my turn in the investigator phase completely in a different perspective than I was normally used to playing with. So that's what I think that why this card deserves a second chance for not only myself, because this is also my own video. I think I need to look at some of these cards differently as well. That's kind of how they made the cut for myself. But I think what this card also does is it allows other people to potentially change how they approach certain aspects of the game in regards to the managing with enemies. Because like, it's one of those things that like it's a little bit strange, but like Deny Existence and Dodge have both gone up in value for me lately because of how it allows you to change the pacing of your turns, and it allows you to take more risks to get more advantage in the future or dictate better turns into the future. And I think cards that do that for me, Flesh Ward is another example of a card that's like that. Like, would I sacrifice 1 damage and only take 1 horror for in order to set myself up for a better strike next turn? I think the answer to that is 100% yes. And that's why I think this card, I'm going to try it out in more decks. I myself am going to give it more second chances, and maybe someone watching this will as well. Who knows? Next up, we have Empty Vessel. Buckle in, this one's going to take me a while to read. This is a 1-cost, 4 experience accessory slot. It's Item Relic Blessed, limit 1 per deck, uses 0 charges. As a reaction, after you defeat an enemy, place 1 charge on Empty Vessel. As a lightning bolt, if there are at least 3 charges on Empty Vessel, search your bonded cards for Wish Eater and swap it with Empty Vessel, moving all charges from Empty Vessel to Wish Eater. Wish Eater still takes up the accessory slot. It's bonded to Empty Vessel, which, you know, checks out. That's how the card works. As a reaction, when you reveal a Skull, Cultist, Tablet, or Squid Chaos token during a skill test, spend 1 charge. Cancel that Chaos token, heal 1 damage and 1 horror. If Wish Eater has no charges, search your bonded cards for Empty Vessel, swap it with Wish Eater, and that last one is forced. So, Like Martyrs Vrace, aka Salami Arm, this card takes up the accessory slot. So there's been a lot of competition with just the general use case of people putting in Hallowed Mirror into their Guardian decks, which we talked about for overrated cards. We did a list video of that recently, and Travis proposed that Hallowed Mirror is probably like overplayed. And in that video, and honestly, I do kind of agree, because I think there are a lot of awesome cards within the Guardian class that people just kind of like don't play as much because Hallowed Mirror is just easy to put in and it's low commitment, which is a plus side for why people do play it as much as they do. But I think, like with Martyrs Vrace, this is a card that can do a lot for you in the same aspects of Hallowed Mirror, but in a different way. So like Hallowed Mirror is playable, especially if you are playing allies that you want to heal damage and horror off of, if you're like using like a beat cop or a field agent, etc., etc., or if you are supporting a team in terms of healing like that. So that's where like Hallowed Mirror wins it. However, if you're looking at just healing yourself, hey, maybe your empty vessel ain't too bad. So if we compare them, let's just look at Hallowed Mirror 3 as a more apt comparison, because the experience is going here, like if you're upgrading. You need to find both of them. They're both limit 1 per deck, but they're both items. So they both have ways you can dig them out with backpacks, like as an example. One of them, you get 2 or 3 healing right off the bat. The other 2 get shuffled into your deck. This is after you defeat an enemy, you can place a charge on it, and then if there are at least 3 charges, you don't need to do it when there are 3. You can do more, you can flip it to its other version. On the flip side of this card, it cancels the tokens. So basically, those 4 tokens in the Mythos bag are auto successes. You're going to pass the test if you do draw those tokens, which is a very powerful effect, which I think is, you have to work for it, but it is really nice when you do get there. And you have to kind of work for it. So like the difference between working for the remainder of the healing, while Wish Eater will give you more healing over that period of time, it does give you more past tests. And while Hallowed Mirror will give you more healing, it won't give you the past tests to go with it. And you also have to spend the actions to play the other soothing melodies. This is just the one action to put it into play. I think it's also campaign dependent for when you want to approach Wish Eater, right? Like if you are playing Dream Eaters, Wish Eater is pretty damn good, and also because of the way the experience works in that campaign, you'll get it out really early. If you are a goon and your plan is to kill a bunch of enemies, I think Wish Eater is going to do really well. Akachi can play Wish Eater. There's actually one of the best builds I've seen with Empty Vessel and Wish Eater was an Akachi deck that a patron brought to a game day, and I was like, that's pretty impressive. I think the hardest part about Wish Eater is that you need to find it and play it earlier on in the campaign. So earlier on this scenario, rather. And while the same is true for Hallowed Mirror, it does give you a bit of a boost in comparison. However, with all that said, the upside of Wish Eater is so good that I think that this is worth playing more. And if you are using the Hallowed Mirror just for incidental healing, maybe you actually don't need the incidental healing and you'd rather just like try to work a little bit farther to get the upgraded Empty Vessel to put it into play and like start ignoring all those Mythos tokens and having a fantastic time doing it. I do think that this card is very powerful, but I think like a lot of people maybe rightly think it's a bit too slow. But at the same time, if you combine this with other cards that I think do really well with the Guardian class, for example, First Watch, On the Hunt, especially On the Hunt level 3, these are keys that allow you to make your Empty Vessel more consistent. If you want to find ways to like find enemies, you will be able to do it, and this is a good way to get that done. In addition, it's also blessed, which means that it works very well with the Occult Reliquary permanent that just came out on Hemlock Vale. So maybe there is something there, and maybe you should give Empty Vessel a shot in your next campaign. All right, next up we have Springfield M1903. So this is a 4-cost, 4-experience weapon, takes up 2 hand slots. Item weapon firearm uses 3 ammos. As an action, you can spend 1 ammo to fight. You get +3 fist and deal +2 damage for this attack. Cannot be used to attack enemies engaged with you. However, it can be attacked with a new taboo. This attack may target a non-elite enemy up to 1 location away from its standard range, ignoring the aloof and retaliate keywords. So, I do think with the general sentiment online that this card is kind of like not great is still true, I do also still believe that this card can benefit from another look. I think there could be some discoveries made with it. I think obviously like Leo Anderson is a good home for a deck like this. I mean, it is a deck because if you're building around the Springfield M1903, it allows you to, the damage output of it is insane, and I think you're not going to need to be firing it a lot of times to build around it too much. I think what makes this card which has gotten much better since even its taboo, is the fact that there is a larger variety of ways of dealing with enemies in addition to your weapon. A good example of this, which is a Leo deck that I brought, was an M1918 bar deck. And the idea with that was to load it with a lot of ammo and then kill the bosses with it. And while this card, I think it's like, its big thing is that it's like it can still hit elite enemies, right? The taboo is a little bit funky to read. So this attack may target a non-elite enemy up to 1 location away. So you can still hit, you can still shoot. Can you even shoot a boss with this? I'm suddenly having a crisis of faith about M19. They have the Springfield M1903 in this video, but this attack may target a non-elite enemy up to 1 location away from its standard range. This attack can target... Can you still fight with it? Can you just beat a beast? Can you just beat a boss with it? Because if you can't beat a boss with it, then that's going to be a bit of a problem. So my perspective when I came with was that you could still fight things like a boss with it. Ignoring the aloof and retaliate keywords is a powerful effect if you're shooting up to a distance away. Honestly, maybe this card, I mean, I was like, you know what, at the start of this, when I was making this video, I was like, yeah, this card does deserve a second chance. And the main reason for that is that combat in the Guardian class, let me stick to my thesis. Let's get my thesis out there and then we can have our crisis of faith, okay? The Guardian class, a big thing for them is that their combat has changed a lot, even in the last few cycles. What happens now is that combat doesn't necessarily need to always revolve around your gun. You can use other tools to get the job done. These are like awesome kill spells. These are, like enemy mitigation, slowing enemies down, and then you can like find the perfect opportunity to kill the enemies that show up. And that's why I think this card does probably deserve a second chance in my initial thesis, but maybe you are witnessing a man crumble into dust in a video and being like, you know what, maybe this card, maybe I can't even think of a reason for this. You know what? If you were the Discord user who suggested this one, because I agreed with you at first, but now as I like strip it down and like put it into perspective of beyond my thesis of that, maybe you can build around this weapon because Guardian tools around the weapon are so good, like especially like one in the chamber also does a really good job. Maybe that thesis is still true, but maybe you would rather just play the M1918 bar with this one. So I'm going to throw this one to you. I feel like this one is a little bit... Maybe this video should be 4 Guardian cards. You should give a second chance. 4 plus 1. I don't know. But let's move on to our last one here. Let's get away from this crisis of faith I'm having. And let's just talk about a card that also maybe shouldn't be on this list, but I do think that I don't see it played as much as it should be played, and that's toe-to-toe. This is a 0-cost Guardian event, Spirit Tactic, Fight. This attack deals +1 damage and is automatically successful. As initial cost, perform this attack that shows an enemy makes an attack against you. This card is insane. If you've only played this card a few times, you should definitely be playing this card more. I think that this is a crazy powerful level 0 card that'll do its work for you from scenario 1 all the way to scenario like maybe not 8, like maybe like 7 and 8 you side it out. But even then, what this thing does, and you might not be aware of it, is that it is automatically successful, which means that you are still doing the test for it. Which means that if you commit a card like, say, for example, Vicious Blow or Stunning Blow or any other card that cares about, being committed to a fight action to deal extra damage or get an additional boost, you will get that ability out of it. This also works well for someone like, I don't know, let's just say like Schizo Tool or Leo Anderson, who can also commit like a watch this to this, because it treats the test result as a 0, which means that you will succeed by the number that you put into it. These are all like powerful things that this card just continues to bring to the table. And when I mean that you should give it a second chance, I mean that this card should probably you should just be playing this card more. If you're scared of the downside, I can accept that it may seem scary, but the upside on this card is absolutely insane. You're basically just spending a card to eliminate an enemy from the board, and that's a very powerful effect. Kind of look at this card. It might be a little bit strange to look at this, but this is like a true Guardian Ward of Protection. Most enemies will deal like 1 damage and 1 horror. A lot of enemies will just deal 1 damage or 1 horror. A lot of enemies will have 2 health. This is a way for you to just spend an action and a card to take a damage, maybe take a horror, maybe take a damage and a horror, to basically mitigate that encounter card that was drawn this turn. That's like a simple way of looking at it. It's just like, it's that efficient, right? It just like solves a problem with very little upfront cost, and then there's also all of the bonus stuff that comes with it. Like, seriously, put a Vicious Blow on this. It feels so damn good. Put 2 Vicious Blows on it, you know? Have a boss hit you for 2 and 2, you know? Flesh Ward 1 of it away. Have the rest soak on your Flesh Ward because you've used all your charges. And then, like, commit 2 Vicious Blows and deal 4 damage for no test and 1 action, and, like, ooh. It's a really good card, and I think that, like, again, it's a little bit disingenuous, but anytime I can stand up on a soapbox and talk about toe-to-toe, I'll do it, because I think this card is actually crazy. I think this is a very, very powerful Guardian card, and I'll look to play it, like, pretty much wherever I can. It's very good. Okay. There were 5 Guardian cards you should give a second chance to. Apparently, even for me, I had to. I don't know what happened with the Springfield. I apologize for that, but you know, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe let me know in the comments if you are a Springfield defender, and like, I mean, I just lost the sauce in that. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this list video. We'll be back for Seeker, Rogue, Mystic, and Survivor as well in the next months and all that. They'll just be on the channel in the near future. Let me know if there's any Seeker cards that you think people should give a second chance to in the comments as well. In the meantime, have a good one. Thanks for watching, and as always, GG's.